Get out of the car, quick! Do you hear me? Put your hands on the roof of the car, now! The voice, sharp and authoritative, tore through the damp, drizzly night of Harmony Creek. It struck Marcus Thorne like a thunderclap, though he had expected it the moment the blinding red and blue lights had suddenly swept across his rearview mirror, forcing his old sedan to the side of the road. The rain wasn't heavy, but it was steady and cold enough to soak through his thin hoodie, making Marcus shiver as he stepped out of the car. The wind blew through the valley, carrying the chill of a late autumn night. The only streetlight on the road was flickering, weak, just enough to illuminate the muddy puddle at his feet and the smug, red face of the approaching police officer. He was big and muscular, his dark blue uniform almost bursting with muscle. The name tag on his chest read, Miller. Beside him was a much younger cop, thin and nervous, his name tag reading Davis. He kept his distance, his hand resting lightly on his gun but his eyes constantly glancing around, as if he himself was uncomfortable with the situation. "Hurry up!" Miller roared again, pointing at the roof of Marcus's 2008 Honda Accord. Marcus said nothing. He slowly, deliberately raised his hands, palms down on the cold, wet metal of the roof. He felt the rain running down his arms, soaking into his collar. He could see his own blurry reflection in the wet windshield, a dark-skinned man in his 50s, his face lined with fatigue, wearing plain, unremarkable clothes. A very ordinary image. And perhaps that very ordinariness was the source of all the trouble tonight. A broken taillight. Is that the real reason why a man is stuck face down in his cold car on a rainy night? Or is there another reason behind it? A reason rooted in deep prejudice in the minds of those in power? Let's see what happens next. "Driver's license and registration," Miller ordered, his voice devoid of the slightest courtesy. He stood close behind Marcus, the smell of cheap cigarettes and stale coffee wafting from his breath. "It's in my wallet, right back pocket, and the registration is in the front glove compartment," Marcus replied, his voice strangely calm. He didn't turn around, his eyes still fixed on the dark road ahead, where the road led to his mother's house. "I'm not asking you where it is. I'm ordering you to take it out," Miller snapped. "Slowly. Use your left hand. Very slowly. Don't do anything stupid." Marcus let out a long breath, the thin white smoke dissipating into the cold air. He slowly lowered his left hand, slowly reached into his back pocket, and pulled out a worn leather wallet. He opened it, took out the plastic driver's license, and handed it back to the officer. Miller snatched the certificate. He turned on the small but powerful flashlight, shining it directly into Marcus's face, making him squint. "Marcus Thorne," he said, his voice full of mockery. "Address, Georgetown, Washington, D.C. What the hell are you doing in Harmony Creek at this hour? Thorne?" "I'm going to visit my mother," Marcus replied briefly. "She's sick." Miller chuckled, an unpleasant sound in the quiet night. "Visiting Mom? What a touching story. Who would believe it?" He handed Davis his license. "Check to see if this guy has any arrest warrants." Young Officer Davis took the badge, looking a little embarrassed. He turned back to the patrol car, his voice coming through the radio, ragged and uncertain. Meanwhile, Miller continued his interrogation. "Now for the registration. Open the car door. Take it." Marcus turned around, facing Miller. For the first time, their eyes met. Miller's eyes were pale blue, cold and full of arrogance. Marcus's eyes, on the other hand, were deep and calm like a lake without waves. But underneath was a powerful current that no one could see. "Can I have it, officer?" Marcus asked, his voice still even. Miller smirked. "Of course. Go ahead." Marcus slowly opened the driver's door, still standing outside, and bent down to open the glove compartment. Inside was a jumble of papers, the owner's manual, a few old CDs. He found the registration in a plastic envelope and pulled it out. As he straightened up and handed it to Miller, the officer deliberately jerked his hand, causing the papers to fall straight into the dirty puddle at Marcus's feet. "Oh, sorry," Miller said. But the smile on his face said otherwise. "Slippy. Pick it up." Marcus looked down at the muddy papers. He was silent for a second, not out of anger, but to remember this moment, to burn this image into his mind. This was no ordinary traffic stop. This was a deliberate humiliation. He bent down, picked up the sodden papers, and tried to brush away the mud. The words on the paper were starting to blur. "Thanks," Marcus said, handing it back to Miller. Miller picked it up with 2 fingers as if it were something dirty, glanced at it briefly, and tossed it onto the roof of Marcus's car. "Your right taillight is cracked. Did you know that?" "I know. It just cracked this afternoon. I plan to have it fixed tomorrow morning." "Tomorrow morning?" Miller laughed. "I'm not sure you're getting that tomorrow morning out there. You look suspicious. Thorne, a guy from DC driving a beat-up old car, hanging around here in the middle of the night? You're delivering something, right?" "I'm not transporting anything illegal, officer." "So you don't mind if we search your car?" Miller asked. But his tone wasn't a question. It was a statement. This is a boundary. Marcus knows it. He has spent his career studying and enforcing boundaries like this. "I do mind," Marcus replied, his voice taking on a sharp edge for the first time. "Under the Fourth Amendment, you have no probable cause to search my car without a warrant. A cracked taillight is not probable cause." Marcus's change in tone seemed to surprise Miller, and then it immediately turned to anger. He was not used to being lectured about the law by someone like Marcus. "The Fourth Amendment?" He took a step forward, invading Marcus's personal space. His breath was on his face. "Are you going to lecture me on law, boy? I am the law here. When I say I have a reason, I mean I have a reason. Do you understand?" The word boy was deliberately pronounced, a word loaded with centuries-old racial slurs. Marcus felt a familiar anger swell in his chest, but he had spent his life training to control it. Anger was a luxury he could not afford at the moment. Calm, collect, observe. That was his motto. Officer Davis turned from the patrol car, looking even more confused. "Sir, no warrants. Valid license. Vehicle registration matches." Miller didn't even look at Davis. His eyes were still fixed on Marcus. "I don't care. My gut tells me this guy is a mess. Davis, help me." "But sir," Davis hesitated. "We don't have—" "Do as I say," Miller shouted, causing Davis to jump and fall silent. Miller turned back to Marcus, his evil smile returning. "For the last time, are you going to let us search your car, or do we have to use force?" Marcus looked Miller straight in the eye. "I disagree. Any further action you take is illegal." "Fine. You brought it on yourself." In a flash, Miller grabbed Marcus's arm, twisted it behind his back, and slammed him against the side of the car. Marcus's shoulder blade made a soft crack. Pain shot through him, but he didn't cry out. He just gritted his teeth. "Davis." After a moment's hesitation, moved forward to grab Marcus's other arm. "You have the right to remain silent." Miller sarcastically recited the Miranda rule while his other hand rummaged through Marcus's pockets. He took his phone and car keys. Then he handcuffed Marcus. The cold cuffs tightened around his wrists. "Davis, watch him. I'm going to search this car." Miller ordered and began the illegal search. He opened the car door and shined his flashlight into every corner. He flipped the back seat open, rummaged through the glove compartment, and dumped CDs and papers on the floor. Marcus watched silently from behind, feeling the concerned gaze of the young officer guarding him. Davis. He could see the inner struggle in the young man's eyes. He knew this was wrong, but his fear of his superiors and the pressure to conform won out. "Aha! Here it is!" Miller's voice shouted triumphantly from inside the car. He pulled out from under the passenger seat a black leather briefcase, expensive-looking and out of place with the rest of the old car. Miller placed the briefcase on the roof and unlocked it. Inside were neatly arranged documents, a slim laptop, and a thick stack of cash carefully clipped together. Miller picked up the stack of bills, eyeballing it. "Wow, that must be a few thousand. Tonight's sales?" He laughed. "You lie without blinking an eye. Thorn, visiting sick mother. What a good son." Marcus didn't answer. He knew any words would be meaningless. Miller had made up a story in his head and would stick to it. Miller then flipped through the files. On the cover of the top file was a clearly embossed seal. U.S. Department of Justice, Civil Rights Division. Ignorance and prejudice had completely clouded Miller's reason. Instead of realizing the importance of what he was holding in his hands, he burst into a long, contemptuous laugh. "Holy shit! Forged federal documents!" He held up the documents for Davis to see. "Look, Davis! This guy is pretending to be from the Justice Department. This is a serious crime. He's definitely a professional con man." He turned to another page, where there was an internal memo with the name Marcus Thorn printed in the sender field. Just below the words, Deputy Attorney General, Civil Rights Division. Miller sneered. "Deputy Attorney General? Who do you think you are? The President of the United States? Who do you think you can fool with these cheap tricks?" He slammed his briefcase shut. "That's enough. You'll have to explain this at the station. Davis, call in. We've just arrested a dangerous subject, suspected of transporting controlled substances, carrying a large amount of cash, and impersonating a federal official." Davis nodded mechanically, but his face was paler than ever. There was something about the handcuffed man's calm that made him uneasy. It didn't sound like the reaction of a criminal caught in the act, as Miller basked in his victory. Marcus spoke. His voice was still steady, without a trace of tremor, but this time it carried a different weight, a hidden steel. "Officer Miller," he said, "I suggest you stop. I'm giving you one last chance to rethink what you're doing." Miller turned around, his face angry. "You dare threaten me? You think you have the upper hand?" "I'm not threatening you," Marcus said slowly, emphasizing each word. "I'm warning you. Your actions tonight will reshape your entire career, and possibly your life. Take the handcuffs off me. Give me back my stuff, and we can forget about this. I'll go change the taillight myself." It was an unbelievably generous offer, an escape Miller never deserved, but his arrogance became an impenetrable wall. He laughed, a hearty, cruel laugh. "Forget it? Are you dreaming? You will sit in my filthy cell and ponder that offer? Take him away, Davis." Miller pushed Marcus into the back of the patrol car. Marcus knew at that moment that any chance of a quiet resolution was gone. Miller had crossed every line, dug himself into a hole too deep to climb out of. Marcus's plan had worked better than he could have hoped. He had evidence not only of a wrongful stop, but also of an illegal search, of abuse of force, and of blatant disregard for federal law enforcement. He had everything he needed. Before being pushed into the back seat of the patrol car, Marcus said one last sentence, his voice calm. "Officer, may I make a phone call?" Miller sneered, opening the back door of the patrol car. "Okay. Call your lawyer. Let me see what he can do when you're charged with impersonating a federal official. He'll probably be in jail with you soon." He slammed the door. trapping Marcus in the darkness of the car. Sitting on the cold, hard plastic bench, his hands cuffed behind his back. Marcus Thorne felt no fear. He felt no anger. He felt only a deep sadness and a steely determination. The curtain had come down. Miller opened the front door, got into the driver's seat, and started the engine. Davis sat in the passenger seat, silent as a statue. "Give me his phone," Marcus said from the back seat. Miller, with a look of sadistic amusement, turned and picked up Marcus's phone. "Who do you want to call? Mr. Deputy Attorney General?" "Please dial this number for me," Marcus said, reading the 10-digit number clearly. "And please, put it on speaker. I want you to listen." Miller shrugged, looking amused. "Fine. Let's see how this goes." He dialed the number, and the ringing echoed in the cramped space of the car. It rang once, twice. On the third ring, a voice came from the other end. A deep, authoritative, confident voice. A voice that thousands of lawyers and prosecutors across America knew and respected. "Office of the United States Attorney General. David Peterson speaking." For a moment, the whole world seemed to stop. The pattering rain outside suddenly became loud. The roar of the patrol car engine seemed to have died away. Officer Miller's smile froze, as if frozen. His eyes widened, disbelief and the beginnings of terror evident in them. Beside him, young Officer Davis paled. He swallowed, his Adam's apple moving with difficulty. He stared at the phone as if it were a venomous snake. The silence was heavy and oppressive. And then, Marcus Thorne's calm voice broke the silence. His voice was flat, without a trace of emotion. But every word he uttered was like a hammer blow to Frank Miller's career and life. "David, it's me. Marcus." There was silence on the other end of the line for a second. Then David Peterson's voice came through, surprised but still professional. "Marcus, where are you? I thought you were on vacation." "I am," Marcus replied. "But there was some trouble in a little town called Harmony Creek, in this state. No, I'm fine. I'm just experiencing the local justice system firsthand." There was another short silence. David Peterson was an extremely intelligent man. He could read the meaning behind those calm words. "Marcus, what's wrong? Tell me clearly." David's voice became more serious. "Oh, nothing much." Marcus continued, his eyes fixed on Miller's horrified reflection in the rearview mirror. "I'm handcuffed in the back of a patrol car. My arrestor is Officer Frank Miller, badge number 734, Harmony Creek Police Department. He pulled me over for a cracked taillight." "What?" David Peterson's voice was now laced with unconcealed anger. "That's right," Marcus continued coldly. "He thinks I'm impersonating a federal agent after he searched my car and found our division documents. Oh, and he believes the Justice Department's Civil Rights Division is a hoax. He also found the cash I brought home to pay my mother's medical bills and assumed it was drug money." Every detail Marcus gave was like a knife stabbing into Miller. The officer's face went from pale to white to ashen. Cold sweat broke out on his forehead, running in rivulets down his temples. He began to shake uncontrollably. "David," Marcus continued, his voice now carrying the weight of authority he held, "I think we need to make the investigation into systemic misconduct at the Harmony Creek Police Department a top priority. I believe I have enough evidence here. A perfect case study." Miller shook so much that he dropped the phone to the floor of the car. The sound rang out like a gunshot in the silence. He turned, looking at Marcus like a drowning man clutching at straws. But all he saw was cold, judgmental eyes. Sir," Miller stuttered, the words unable to escape his constricting throat. "Sir Deputy, Deputy Attorney General, I don't know. I'm sorry. Please. It was just a misunderstanding. Marcus just looked at him, not saying a word. His silence was more terrifying than any accusation. Please, Mr. Thorne, Miller begged, his voice cracking with fear. I have a family. A child. Please, I made a terrible mistake. Please give me a chance. Young Officer Davis sat there, stunned. He had witnessed a complete collapse. The senior colleague he had feared and respected only moments before was now crying and begging like a child. From the floor phone, David Peterson's voice continued to ring. Razor sharp. Marcus, can you hear me? I'm mobilizing the FBI rapid response team from the nearest field office. They'll be there in less than an hour. And I'm calling the governor and the state police right now. Hold your position. Don't go anywhere. Marcus leaned down just enough to speak into the phone. No need to rush, David. I think the local sheriff will be here soon. I believe Officer Miller here has already informed his superiors about his big arrest. And sure enough, in the distance, sirens began to wail. Not one, but several. Flashing red and blue lights tore through the night, growing closer. Miller looked out the window, his face now filled with utter despair. He knew this was not backup. This was judgment coming. Less than 15 minutes later, the deserted back roads were in chaos. 2 county patrol cars and Chief Harmony Creek's personal car slammed on their brakes, forming a circle around Miller's car. Chief Henderson, a stout, middle-aged man with a face drained of blood, jumped out of his car before it had even come to a stop. He didn't even glance at Miller. His eyes searched, and when he saw Marcus sitting calmly in the back of the patrol car, Henderson practically sprinted over. "Oh my God, Miller, open the door, quickly!" Henderson roared, his voice cracking with panic. Davis, as if awakening from a nightmare, hastily pressed the unlock button. Henderson yanked the door open, nearly tearing it off its hinges. He looked at Marcus with a mixture of awe and horror. Deputy Attorney General Thorne. Henderson gasped. On behalf of the Harmony Creek Police Department, I offer my deepest apologies. This was an unforgivable mistake, a terrible misunderstanding. Henderson hurriedly searched Miller's pocket for the handcuff key, his hands shaking so much that he dropped it on the ground. He fumbled to pick it up, almost kneeling to unlock Marcus's handcuffs. The click of the handcuffs being unlocked sounded like a death sentence for Frank Miller. Marcus slowly rubbed his red-marred wrists, straightened up, and stepped out of the car. He took a deep breath of the cool, damp night air, as if emerging from deep water. After making sure Marcus was free, Sheriff Henderson turned around, and all his fear turned into an uncontrollable rage, unleashed on Miller. "Miller!" he roared, his voice echoing through the forest. "Do you know what the hell you've just done? Do you know who this is?" Henderson pointed at Marcus. "This is Deputy Attorney General Marcus Thorne, the man who is directly leading the federal investigation into our own police department for alleged misconduct. Do you understand? You just handed him all the evidence he needs on a silver platter." Miller stood there, his whole body shaking. He couldn't speak. Everything had collapsed. "You ruined everything!" Henderson continued to scream, spit flying. "My career! The careers of everyone here! You're done! Do you hear me? Miller, you're done!" On the spot, under the flashing lights of patrol cars and the eyes of his fellow officers, Henderson ordered another officer to strip Miller of his weapon, badge, and radio. Frank Miller, who had only recently been the uncrowned king of the street, now stood there, broken and deranged, stripped of all symbols of authority. He was suspended indefinitely, pending an internal investigation and, almost certainly, a civil rights lawsuit from the Justice Department. Meanwhile, Marcus approached young Officer Davis. He stood against the patrol car, his face still pale, avoiding Marcus's eyes. "Officer Davis," Marcus said, his voice no longer cold but thoughtful. "You had many chances to do the right thing tonight. You didn't, but you still have one more chance." Davis raised his head, his eyes filled with confusion and regret. "Cooperate fully with our investigators." Marcus continued. "Tell us the truth. Not just about tonight, but about all the other times you witnessed and chose to remain silent. It's the only way you'll save what's left of your career. And more importantly, your conscience." Davis nodded vigorously, tears starting to well up in his eyes. "Yes, sir. Yes, I will. I will tell you everything." The story of Officer Frank Miller and Deputy Attorney General Marcus Thorne quickly became a cautionary tale among local law enforcement. The Harmony Creek Police Department was placed under full federal oversight for years afterward. Policies were changed. Anti-bias training and appropriate use of force were implemented. Several other officers who had engaged in similar behavior as Miller were fired and faced harsh criminal penalties. Marcus Thorne finally reached his mother's house in the early hours of the morning. She was fast asleep. He sat quietly by her bedside, watching her gentle face in the light of the nightlight. The trip, which began with a terrible incident, had a more meaningful outcome than he could have imagined. It was not just a personal vendetta, but a necessary push to bring about change for an entire community. He looked out the window, watching the dawn break over the horizon. He reflected on what had happened. True power is not about uniforms, guns, or shiny badges. It is about integrity, about upholding the law, and treating every citizen with the respect and fairness they deserve. Discrimination, arrogance, and abuse of power, however well hidden in the most remote places, will eventually be brought to light. And justice, however late it may be, will always have its own voice, an echo that echoes through the night. And that is our story today. A story of power, prejudice, and truth exposed. What do you think of Officer Miller's outcome? Will it serve as a deterrent to similar behavior? If you were in the situation of young Officer Davis, witnessing your colleague doing something wrong, would you choose to stay silent or speak up? Does this story make you think about the importance of treating people fairly, regardless of their appearance? Please leave your comments below. I would love to hear your thoughts. Thanks for watching.